When it comes to self-care, ginger can be used in more than just your diet. Try Ginger with 2 J's, a new all-natural ginger essential oil designed to help rejuvenate your mind and body. Ginger's special extraction process results in a higher purity ginger oil, and it comes pre-mixed with carrier oils, so it's always ready to use. Plus, the convenient dropper cap ensures you get the perfect amount every time. Get 20% off your first purchase today at jinjer.us/podcast. That's ginger.us/podcast.
Excited for a road trip? Start it off right with auto coverage from American Family Insurance. J.D. Power ranked us #1 in customer satisfaction with the auto insurance shopping experience among mid-size insurers. Get a quote at amfam.com.
American Family Insurance.
For J.D. Power 2021 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI and its operating companies, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
Hey, and welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast, an adulting advice podcast production. I'm Danny Sheriff, and this is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. Let's dive in. And guys, please remember that I am not a doctor and nothing on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always seek the advice of your physician. This episode's sponsor is Green Chef, and I'm pumped to tell you why we chose Green Chef and how they're a great option if you're trying to recover from HA and you're wondering, what do I eat? So Green Chef is the first USDA certified organic meal kit company, and they make eating well super easy and it's affordable with plans that fit every lifestyle, including you guys. Just hear me out here. The reason we reached out to Green Chef to see if they would work with us is because 2 of the most common hang-ups or concerns that I get from women when they're trying to ensure that they're eating enough during this time is, I don't really enjoy or even know how to cook and tend to eat only the same few things over and over again, and concern that eating enough food in the day just is challenging. And one of the big reasons that I really wanted to go with Green Chef is because it's one thing for you to go and get all of your meals from McDonald's to ensure that you're hitting your calories, but as a community, we really don't talk enough about the quality and nutrient density of our food while we're trying to get our periods back. So I have been using the meal prep kits, and I would actually consider myself someone who does know how to cook. But as I was using these, I thought, yeah, this is exactly what my girls who say they can't cook need. Because here's the thing. Each recipe comes fully kitted out with the exact ingredients that you need, with super simple recipes to follow. Like, trust me, usually if something has a recipe and it's like more than 3 steps, I cannot be bothered because I know it's just more work to follow and I rather cook by vibe. But these ones are more like 5 to 6 simple steps because so much of it's already done for you. And it occurred to me that if you think that you don't know how to cook, this is actually exactly where you should start. I learned to cook, and the best of the best will tell you the same thing, that you learn to cook by starting with simple and basic things, following basic instructions by someone who knows what they're doing. You're not just born knowing how to cook, you have to try. So you'll experience this with Green Chef. You'll walk away being like, oh, okay, I now know how to oven roast some chicken or how to cook shrimp properly. Like, you will learn some skills with these kits at the same time. And I am sure you'll learn everything from some cooking methods to like ideas for pairing ingredients. So it's super valuable for you girls who are turned off about cooking new types of meals. And when it comes to the concern of how do I know I'm eating enough? And that's something that Green Chef is great for. They send you a full balanced meal, and it always has a healthy serve of protein, carbs, and fat that I love. I love that there's always some kind of tasty sauce that I would never really think to add for myself. It's fun. It's funner than cooking for yourself sometimes. So another thing I really like is that you get the exact amount of food that you need, which I mentioned before, but this is about waste reduction right now. Side note, I am obsessed with zero waste when it comes to food. I love to compost, and I try my very best to never throw anything out. So if you're a food waster, Green Chef is for you. Also, over the years, I've gotten meals from various meal prep companies, and the packaging is always insane. Cardboard boxes inside of cardboard boxes with ice packs and plastic wrap. Yes, Green Chef does have some packaging, but I love how it all comes with recycling instructions. And some of the packaging, they even supply return instructions. That's a huge win for me. And when the food arrived, it wasn't in copious amounts of plastic, foam, and cardboard. They really used the minimum amount needed to ship, which is awesome. Okay, coming back really quick to the nutrition conversation here. This is one of the main reasons I wanted Green Chef to sponsor the show. You do not need to only eat fast food and junk to get your period back. And those of us that believe in this will die on this hill. So many of us are not getting the variety and joy from our food that we need. We're just eating whatever. And that's also why we're in this situation. Yes, you can get your period back by eating a surplus of calories, but don't you also want to feel good? So, look, I love a good Whataburger as much as the next girl, but you have to get those veggies. You have to get those whole foods and quality proteins. That is why I'm pumped to offer this potential solution for you. So, they also have vegan and vegetarian recipes. I know many of you are determined to stick with your plant-based. All good with me. And that also includes recipes for paleo and keto, which means, honestly, it just means like if you get to switch it up every single week. Because I know what you're thinking. Keto for hypothalamic amenorrhea? No. And I would agree. But I did get the keto box and I added a side of rice to the Boom Boom shrimp bowl and rice also to the creamy lemon chicken and like a burger bun to the pork patties, and voila. Like, it's so easy to just add something to any of them. So you don't even have to worry about that. If those things aren't important to you, you can get just whatever sounds good. So if Green Chef sounds like exactly what you need, go to greenchef.com/90HAP and use 90HAP at the checkout for free delivery, free shipping. You can save tons of money on food, tons of time in the kitchen, and tons of stress. So enjoy. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast, the hardest podcast on the internet to say. I'm excited because I have some guests today that are really going to probably answer some questions I've always had, probably open up my perspective on some new areas that some of you guys listening are more connected with that I'm less connected with. And it's kind of the dance world. And HA is rampant in the dance community, potentially more than any other athletic community around. Potentially, I don't really know. But I know that many of you guys listening have a history in performance, the performance arts. Personally, I am not a dancer. There was a brief stint there. My mom tried. I quickly realized, like, as soon as I found out there was no concert soon and you had to rehearse all year for one concert, I was out. It's like, I need to be on stage now or this is not happening. So I quit promptly. But I've still always been really curious about it. I've kind of regretted that decision, to be honest with you. I would love to be a ballet dancer, like obsessed with Misty Copeland. But that is why I am excited for today's guests. I have Steph, and I really should have checked before I brought them on to pronounce their last name, so I'll let them correct me live on air. But we have Nicky Keay, or Keay, Nicky Keay. Cool. And Stephanie Potreck.
Perfect.
Awesome. Good. I usually do pretty good at that. So welcome, Stephanie and Nicky. How are you?
Hey, Danny. Thanks for having us. Yeah, we're good.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited. On this show, I chat with registered dietitians, nutritionists, functional NTPs, all kinds of coaches and people in the health space to help women listening get an idea of like their next direction, or at least just gain some awesome insights from people to help them on their own personal journey. So I can see that you two do a lot in the education space, kind of supporting women in the dance world, but would you do me a huge favor and break down more specifically to the audience, like who you guys are, exactly what you do, and like what brings you to my show?
Shall I go? I'm Nicky, and like Steph, I'm a medical doctor, and also like Steph, I'm passionate about dancing myself. Always danced from a young age, and continued right up till now being very old, including 2 hip replacements. But
Wow.
my rationale, so that's why I'm particularly interested in dancers. I have to admit, it's my personal passion and interest as well. But I also work with athletes, and the downside of being a dancer is that, as you said in the introduction, you do have to train, rehearse, perform a lot, which is great, but sometimes it can take its toll in the sense that things can become unbalanced in terms of amount of exercise you have to do, and in terms of nutritional intake. And if there's an imbalance there, then, as you said, there can be hormone issues. So that's what I'm interested. Well, I try and help support dancers, but both clinically. Steph and I both see dancers in the clinical context who have run into troubles, and also Steph and I are involved in research surrounding dancers, and Steph and I are super excited. Today we got published a study with dancers, so which does reveal that we're not making this up, that there is an issue. And that therefore, as you said, the important thing for any issue is education, and prevention is what we're aiming for, rather than having to deal with the problems that occur as a result of that. So anyway, Steph, do you want to tell everyone about you?
Yeah, you said quite a bit already. So a couple of years ago, I thought, so first I was in medicine, and I actually wasn't doing dance science or dance medicine. So I kind of took a bit of a break, because during my full-time training, when I wanted to become a professional, I fractured a vertebra, and very probably likely to some sort of mix of not the best training and not the best nutrition. And well, the dancers I was seeing then very much later, so a couple of years ago, I thought like, okay, we've got their physical health, but actually the nutrition isn't covered very well. And kind of, there's this link between nutritional intake, physical health, mental health. And I thought, I want to look into that. And I want to be like, the best practitioner I can be, actually. So I added sports nutrition to this. And while Nicky works a lot on physical and mental health, I do work a lot on nutrition. And so kind of, I think we complement each other quite well.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I think it's really cool that you guys are doctors in the dance space. It's just like the perfect mix. Both doctors, right?
Right, yeah.
Amazing.
But we're slightly different medical doctors.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, there are doctors that are working with dancers, and this applies to sports medicine in general. The traditional route has been actually, that of dealing with injuries, so dealing with the athlete that, pulls a muscle, breaks a bone, and the same for dancers. To date, the emphasis has more been on fixing injuries, frankly. But I think Steph and I...
preventative.
Exactly. Steph and I are more that's my view anyway, and I think Steph will agree that I'm more of the mindset that actually, why did that injury happen in the first place? I mean, actually, of course, injuries happen, accidents happen. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Yes, we cannot prevent all injuries. Things happen, accidents, you slip, you fall, whatever. But if there is anything we can do to prevent that happening, which would come from, for example, underfueling, hormones not working correctly, then actually going back a step and trying to fix that problem at the outset and identifying those at risk, which was the point of our recent study, to see, why are we seeing dancers with hormone issues, particularly functional hypothalamic amenorrhea in the females, of course. You know, actually, shouldn't we be going a step back and seeing what's going on there and trying to look into preventative measures? I think that's really, that's why we're different, isn't it, Steph?
Right. We are all about early intervention. And, just to add to this, I mean, this study was not published in 2020, but when we look 40 years back, it was already quite clear that there are these hormonal issues in female elite ballet dancers or ballet students even. So it was quite clear. And I mean, 40 years, that is just the span of my life. And is that okay that nothing's changed? Well, not really. So we need to raise more awareness. We need to say it once more for the people in the back and a little bit louder. And, you know, this is what we've got to do.
Yeah. And I would love to hear more about this study. It sounds like you guys looked into, you know, more about the root cause of why there's so many injuries in dancers. That's really fascinating for all sports, right? Because I've definitely been learning more and more about how people perceive injury. And a lot of people perceive it as something that is irrelevant to like the fact that you're tired or you're underfueled, and they're kind of these like two separate events that happen, and being tired is just being tired, and that has no correlation to like weaker bones or just less concentration, more likely to make clumsy mistakes, things like that. That's really fascinating. I'd love to know more about the study itself and what you guys found.
Well, you make a very good point there that not only is it a physical consequence of underfueling that your periods might stop or become irregular, but you know, it's not just that the periods stop, and some people even view that that's convenient, but it's, as you say, it's the consequences of that, the poor bone health, the concentration. I think you make a very good point there that you know, we know from research that being amenorrheic means you're less likely to, your reaction time is slowed, your balance is impaired. And by the way, you'll have weak bones. You're trying to balance on point as a dancer. You can see this is not a recipe for a good outcome. So yes, but finding out why that happened in the first place and making the dancers, as you say, and athletes aware that that is going to set them up literally for a fall, that's important. So the point of our study that Steph and I initiated, it was an online questionnaire, and we distributed it worldwide. So we had a good mixture of responses from Australia, Europe, a few from America. And it was really to try and delve into, like you say, the underlying features. What are the drivers, specifically the psychological drivers that might be going along with this pattern of low energy availability. And part of it is that dancers' lives, like we discussed, they're very full, and it's physically difficult. It's physically difficult, and Steph will, I'm sure, back me up on this. You know, it's physically difficult. How are you going to eat or eat, you know, at times when all day you're in the studio? Then you've got to squeeze into a very tight-fitting costume for the performance in the evening. And then by the time it's the end of the performance and you're home, it's 11 o'clock at night. So actually there are, you know, issues with how you're actually going to do this, but also, of course, we know, and that was really the big sort of significant finding in the study. It's actually those dancers that are tempted or have been, frankly, encouraged to restrict their intake. That is concerning. And we can't just say, oh, well, it's a practical issue. There were definite, really, really strong psychological connections between feeling into control of what they were eating and what they were weighing, to, you know, their self-esteem, and actually even their physical consequences, which was fascinating. Those ones that were anxious about all these factors also were the dancers that were more likely to have problems with their periods or their periods stop. So it's absolutely fascinating. Starting off, I'm actually an endocrinologist about hormones. So I always thought, psychology, whatever, but of course, now it's kind of obvious that hormones are important in your mood and your cognition. So obviously, of course, there's a connection. But how strong that connection was, I think that surprised both of us, Steph, didn't it? Do you want to comment about what you thought the standout things were from our study?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, somehow maybe we set it all up and went into it with the idea of, okay, it's not going to be great. So there's not going to be progress like we maybe wish for. But then when the results came in, we were like, ouch, that's actually like 40 years ago. So, I mean, that was literally physically a bit painful. I mean, it's really it's really good to have a basis to say, look, it's not that we are making up these stories that dancers are being told to cut out foods, and usually it's carbohydrates. This really happens, and the overwhelming majority said they had either been told to lose weight at some point in their career, so that could be pre-professional training or as a professional dancer, or at least they have been told to cut out foods. And this, I mean, it affected females more than it affected male dancers, but nevertheless, it's a thing. And that was really important for us, kind of to prove our point and say, look, this is definitely one part where we need a lot of change. It's not okay that when someone's profession is to teach dance, then you don't teach nutrition. Because, I mean, I certainly guess they wouldn't want us to teach them some ballet moves while they are actually in a nutrition session, you know? So it's a big problem, probably stems from decades of non-regulation in the industry, I guess.
Yeah. And it's also interesting, you said like all these women have been told to lose weight at some point or another, but also even if they haven't been told, if everyone else is doing it, that's where you're going to get your information from as well. So like, it's really probably at a point where they don't even need to be told to lose weight. It's just automatic. That's what the other girls are doing. That's what they're saying they're doing to get to the next level. And if you want to be at the next level, and if you want to be prima or whatever it is, you know, you're going to want to do what the best do. And you're
absolutely right there. You make a very important point that we know from the REDS model, relative energy efficiency in sport. I mean, I know it's called sport, but we've just proved that it's dance as well, by the way. But anyway, there is a reversible arrow for psychological, right? So those people that are more likely to develop REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport, and all the clinical consequences we discussed about the injuries and the poor balance and bad, poor mood, etc. Those are people, by the way, who are driven, focused, determined. Right, that's why they are in dance training.
Yeah.
Dancer, or that's why they are doing, sports training, and they want to be a professional athlete, because they are of that personality type. And by the way, in life, we're not giving it's great to have objectives in life, of course, that's really important. But on the other hand, the thing is that if that's your personality type, then you're more likely to sort of misdirect that, as it were. Right, so you're more likely to misdirect that into wanting to control what you're eating, control what you're looking like, control what you're weighing. So you're absolutely right that I have to say that yes, that probably things should be done better from the educational point of view for the teachers and the coaches of the athletes. Yes, of course, as you say, external is important to bring everyone up to speed there, but also it is the internal driver in that person is going to predispose them to maybe follow that course. And then once you're in that position of being in low energy availability, like you said, you just can't actually think that straight. So now you're going to make actually very poor decisions, and you're convincing yourself that all the time that you're doing the right thing. And so it becomes a real vicious circle. And we're talking about dancers, but I think that lots of people listening will, this will all sound familiar, in the type of personality you are, whether you're a dancer or an athlete or not. So, it's important to say that there's a lot we can learn from the our study and the dancers as well that's applicable.
Yeah.
And we just said it in our webinar last weekend, that we really should think of in eating disorder recovery, there is a certain weight or BMI where they will not have psychotherapy, because they will need to restore some weight and some capacity to think clearly first before they actually have access to psychotherapy, just because the brain's really dysfunctional for a while.
The brain literally shrinks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And all the neurotransmitters, the hormones aren't there, so it is very difficult to make those clear decisions. So yeah, I think the point of we're trying to make is it's not just about, oh, have you got periods? Yes, no. It's actually the implications of that. The having a period is just an external sign that actually inside your hormones are fine. And if you're not having a period, which all women should do, it's normal physiology from the age of whatever, 12 to 51 or whatever it is, if the periods stop, it's actually it's a big warning sign. I've got this new phrase I'm calling periods the barometer of healthy hormones, because they're just like an external sign. For women, it actually, in that sense, we should be quite pleased. It's like, that's a very clear indicator, and if those stop, then actually that's a big warning sign that something inside your body is not happy.
Yeah. It's definitely like this wonderful unbiased communication of where our body's at that you can't really argue with.
So exactly, it's an objective measure. We don't even need to do a blood test. It's just like, there you go, periods, yes, no. No one can argue and say, oh, well, it's because I'm this or that and whatever, or because I'm a dancer, which actually Steph and I both get quite annoyed about, to put it mildly.
It's okay, I'm a dancer.
Fellow doctors are saying, oh, well, you're a dancer, that's normal for no period. It's like,
you're so fit. And
this is very common. Almost every woman listening has had a job, including myself.
And even from female doctors saying that to another female, it's like, that's really weird. What were we taught at medical school, or what's common sense?
What were you taught it? Can you please?
I don't want to get you, but you know what I mean. It's like, it's just like, no, you don't even have to have a medical degree to know that periods are normal. You know what I mean? It's been millions of years of evolution. That's what happens and it's not, by the way, just about fertility. That's yes, sure.
By far not.
We have to guess. Of course, we know that. Of course, it's to do with fertility, but it's like often the next question that the person gets asked is, "Oh, well, do you want to become pregnant?" And if the person answers no, then it's like, well, then what's your problem? It's like, well, it's because my physiology, because I have a medical condition. Actually, I have something wrong with my physiology. Thanks very much, and that's what the problem is. But I think going back to this thing about normal, saying, oh, well, it's normal for athletes, dancers, women not to have periods. I don't know where this new normal has come from. I mean, just because now we have an increase.
Oh no. She'll be back.
Epidemic and lots of more type 2 diabetics, and now we wouldn't turn around and say, oh, that's now normal that everyone's overweight. So why would we do the same for amenorrhea? Makes no sense to me. But anyway, I think that probably
no. And I mean, Nicky, just to add to this, why would we make this normal? I mean, we've had findings of 8% of primary amenorrhea in our study when 0.01 is normal for the general population, and secondary amenorrhea, which was even more frequent, we had 33%, when in the general population it should be around 4% only. So I mean, there's not much to argue about.
Exactly. There's nothing, we can't even use that argument that it's normal, because it's ultimately, women are women, whether you're a dancer, an athlete, or an exerciser or not an exerciser. We're all the same in that sense. So of course there should never be this thing about it being, oh, well, that's normal because you're in a certain population. So I think that was really the striking thing. And also, actually, to be fair, in the study, the majority of dancers did recognize and accept and say, yes, we know that there are disadvantages to not having periods aside from pregnancy. But the thing is, even if you know that logically, if you're being sort of surrounded, like you say, by other people telling you that it is normal, and even some doctors telling you it's normal, you of course start to question yourself. You think, well, maybe I'm making a fuss about nothing or something.
Actually, why do these guys, why do they post on Instagram all the time and say, well, you need to have your period as a dancer? So why are they saying this if my GP says,
yes, exactly,
I'm totally fine?
Misinformation. I mean, yes, we have to blame. I mean, there is definitely misinformation in the sense of, non-medical information out there about various things. And social media did have an impact from our study. Dancers did report that was an influence in them feeling obliged or under extra pressure to need to lose weight or whatever. But equally, it's very confusing if a healthcare professional just says, oh, well, not to worry. And then you do second guess yourself and think, well, maybe that's true. And yes, what are these people, what are these other doctors saying? Steph Nicky saying it's so important. It's like, well, now it makes it a confusing situation even more confusing, doesn't it?
The second guessing and the confusion is, I think, kind of just like the biggest part of the problem, because really this whole situation is quite straightforward.
Yeah,
you're over, like, too much energy is being put out, not enough is coming in, and you need to have your period. We all know, the basic fundamentals behind fixing it. But I see so often, women know they're on this journey, they're actively working to get their period back, and also the second they do, it's not necessarily all happy. They're happy for that split second because they work so hard, but also there's these stories in their head of like, but I got my period back, so this means I have been doing less, I have gained weight. And these the scary things, they don't go away. So that's why I'm a huge proponent of, and what I love about the first thing you brought up about your study of, like, it's really so much about the psychological and the mental side of things. And you can't expect to get your period back forever, basically, if you don't address the feelings and the thoughts in your head that are causing the behaviors to happen. And what I loved about the study that you guys explained was, it wasn't just this, I suppose, me just like stereotyping again about researchers and science and stuff, but like finding, where it's happening. Oh, X percent of women who don't have their period experience this, and like leave it at that. But no, it's, they don't have their period, and the root cause of that is this. And that's so important, and that's really cool to hear and see people spreading the word of.
And also, I think that also brings up the thing about I'm almost hesitant to use the word recovery, because if that psychological driver in your head, of course, we know at the extreme, we're talking about a diagnosed eating disorder, but even disordered eating, that still can be quite these psychological drivers, you do have to, it's not just a case of, eat this and then your periods come back and then that's the end of the story. It's also about, what caused it in the first place, and therefore what steps do you need to put in place to prevent it recurring? I mean, this is not so much from the study, although it was obvious that there were very strong drivers there in the first place. So they're not suddenly going to magically disappear overnight. But I think certainly Steph and I are seeing in the clinical context, yes, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, really. It's just like eat some more and do less, and there you go. But we all know it's not that simple, because first of all, you've actually got to do that. So it's a behavioral change you've got to make. So first of all, you've got to persuade or, work out how you're going to do that. And then once you have succeeded, like you say, hopefully, whenever that is, time can be a long time. So I spend a lot of my time trying to encourage people not to give up and to continue, and that this is not a quick fix. There is no such quick thing as a quick fix in life. You don't, eat a bit more, do a bit less, and then the next day your period comes. It can be a slow process, but also the keeping in that place afterwards. And I think that's a key point. If you haven't addressed why you ended up there in the first place, then you're just going to end back there again. And also the other thing I say, let Steph give her opinion on this, but for me, I always say to the person, the dancer, the athlete, I'm not trying to change you. You are who you are. Your character is how it is. It's not possible in any way. Why would I want to change that? Because that would change who you are. But it's actually being honest almost with yourself, or replying to that voice in your head that says, oh, well, I just saw that Instagram post saying whatever, it's, or that voice saying, oh, you don't deserve that, or whatever it is. Actually, how are you personally going to deal with that? Because you're not going to have, I'm not policeman, I always say. I'm not to my, my dancers. It's like, I'm not a policeman. I'm not going to come up and check that you have eaten that banana I advised you to do or whatever. But actually, you've kind of got to try and overcome that yourself. And that actually sometimes is the hardest bit. Well, do you agree with that, Steph?
I totally agree with that. I would just add to that, especially in 2020, I would say, I saw a lot of what I would call the other extreme. So they would have like cognitive behavioral therapy, but low energy availability wouldn't be addressed. And that is also a problem, because if you're being told all the time, that is because of your perfectionism, and that is, like you're feeling kind of depressive because you're having perfectionistic traits, and this is how you approach the world. And it's like, okay, it's fine, that's part of the problem. But actually, as long as low energy availability and how to recover from low energy availability and regaining your period is not addressed, how is this psychological intervention actually going to be successful?
Mm-hmm. So it's combined. It has to be a combined approach, doesn't it?
Absolutely, we need a team.
You need to, yes, let's be frank, you do need to have to look at how much, is the person eating enough carbohydrates ultimately, but also you have to look at what's the psychology, what are the drivers behind why they were avoiding them in the first place. And if you don't address that in combination, then they're just going to end up in the same place. And unfortunately, that's often what happens certainly in eating disorders. The emphasis is very much on the physical, like get them to eat a lot, get them up to a certain weight, and then now they're cured, whatever that means, or recovered or finished. And then the number of people I've had, dancers and athletes, coming to me because, surprised, they've gone back to that same place. Yeah. And they said, yeah, I was diagnosed with an eating disorder, I was hospitalized, I gained the weight required, I went out, and guess what? I just lost it all again. And now I'm back to square one. But no one had ever sorted out why that was in the first place. So it has to be the combined.
Yes, and absolutely. And I just had like a flashback. You're talking about they go back into this environment and then.
Yeah, exactly. You put them back in the same situation. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, what do you do in an environment where, when you're in recovery, the one you are dependent on, so be that your school director or your company director, what do? You are back in recovery, you've maybe gained a couple of pounds, and then it's going to be like, whoa, I see all that fat on your stomach. And it's like,
we're going to the back row.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or not at all. If you want to dance on stage, if you want to dance your solo on stage, no way. Yeah, so
that's an impossible situation.
Quite, exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing about the education. I mean, of course, I think, of course, for the dancers, but actually, hopefully, the people that are maybe giving out these mixed messages. But we don't want to make this all doom and gloom, by the way. Because there are some companies where they are doing a good thing. I mean, I'm fortunate that I'm a medical advisor to Scottish Ballet, for example, and the artistic director is one of the most, he's just a very nice chap. That he's been a professional dancer himself. and he is very much he's all going back to, why are you a dancer? You want to express yourself, you want to give the audience something to think about, something, a story or whatever it is, an emotion, something. He's, so looking at actually just peeling it back, what is dancing? Dancing isn't just there are some people who look very much like a dancer that you might just see in the street. It's like, like they look this way, oh wow. But actually, you put them on stage and they're hopeless. Even if they have the perfect body, whatever that is, there's more to dance than just what you look like. It's actually your expression, your musicality, your picking up the steps quickly, all these other sorts of things. And so there are some companies like the Scottish Ballet where actually they are, this is what dancing is, and they take their dancer health very seriously, which is probably why, because not many companies would want me, because I'm quite like, no, you can't be saying that. No. So the fact that they want me to be there to support the dancer health and, in that way, that is in itself a great sign. So we don't want to make it all doom and gloom, and certainly there are some companies like that, and I think Australia.
Yes, of course. Yes, shout out for Ballet.
Oh, really? We're crushing it. Woo!
Yeah,
you shout out to the Australians.
Nice.
It's really true. So Ballet has certainly been extremely progressive over the past 20 years, I'd say. So ever since Sue Mays became part of the team, and now later head of the medical team. But also Queensland Ballet, I'd say, is really trying very hard to reach a very similar standard. And so it was so nice today to get an email and say, wow, we saw your publication's been released, and congrats, and this is really great, and we need to know more about this, and we're implementing it into our teaching. And
amazing.
So this is really
so there are definitely ways, and after all, that's the whole rationale, wasn't it, Steph, why we did this study. Steph and I met, by the way, at a dance conference a couple of years back. And we were next door to each other, and we were sort of all nodding. We were nodding exactly the same thing. Do you remember? And we were looking at each other. It's like, wow. And it's like, let's do a study. Anyway, but the reason for doing the study was, number one, obviously we shared common interests and passions, but also for the sake of the dancers that are not so fortunate and are in these companies or dance schools where frankly, not such good healthy practices are occurring. And, the dancers were kind of asking us, we are giving them a voice. Those dancers that aren't in such progressive or taking health seriously companies, that's why we did it, the study, to raise awareness and say, look, actually, there's some work to be done, shall we say. So that's what we're trying to do. And, all those dancers that replied to the questionnaire, we're very grateful to them. We made sure it was anonymous because we knew that we didn't want to end this being a blame game and whatever, but it just did make the point that, look, here are the facts, so we can't escape these anymore. And it's great to see that there are companies who are supporting, this type of work and being open about it and being progressive. And hopefully the others will catch up, right?
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, Danny, you go.
I was just going to agree. I was like, being progressive is like literally they're the ones moving forward, and people are going to want to start seeing more diversity. Like it's going to be hard for them to continue this long term.
And exactly, because the companies, if you look at the companies that are looking after health, they're not like, they will be the better companies that will still be there, whereas the other ones that aren't looking after their dancers so well, those dancers' careers are going to be very short. So it's not, we can't use the argument, but you have to do it the old-fashioned way because that's the only way to make a good company. It's like, no, that's not, we can't even use that argument anyway. And we can't be asking the dancers to do new things. If we look back, you said, Steph, that things haven't changed over 40 years, but I'll tell you what has changed: the standard of dance and what the dancers being asked to do. So actually, not only has the health aspect stayed static, but yet the demands have gone up. So it's just like even more out of balance than it was. So, there's no rationale, is there really?
Absolutely not. And interestingly enough, I remember that when the questionnaire went online, we ourselves approached a couple of companies and said, do you think you could forward this to your dancers so that they could be part of this? And they would be like, oh no, thank you.
Exactly.
So, like, straight from the beginning was like, no, we don't want to have to do anything with that.
We haven't got that problem here, thank you very much.
Or that, yeah.
Or whatever it was. It's like, they didn't want to their dancers to be divulging what was going on. So yes, and unfortunately that is the attitude of some of those less forward-looking companies, but hopefully, as we say, the whole point of this is to change, move with the times, make improvements. Otherwise, we'll just be stuck in terms of everything, not just this. Otherwise, we just keep doing the same things that we did do 40 years ago. And, so now we have to throw away all the mobile phones and computers. It's like, I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah. I would love to hear about some areas that you're seeing opportunity here. And the thing that comes to my mind from my background, working corporate teams, building companies, is like, when you want to create change in something that that like the people at the top are going to push back against in some ways, it's like all about what's in it for them, and like unfortunately, they just don't care about their dancers' health and career longevity until they understand the benefit there, right? And I'm sure like financially there's benefits to not having a high turnover of dancers, but also, like you were saying before, they're being asked to do more. When you have healthy, stronger, more creative, higher functioning dancers, they're going to be performing moves you ain't never seen before. They're going to actually be able to just like come up with amazing choreography. They're going to like perform at the standard that you're asking them to. This is what is in it for them. This is what is in it for the company.
Absolutely. And if we're being absolutely hard-nosed about it, finance, I mean, Steph will give the example of the company where they actually had to cancel performances because they had 100 dancers.
There you go.
They had to. It's 2 years ago now. They had too many injuries in the cast, and they had to cancel a performance. And I mean, that is bad enough. But they made it actually public on Instagram, or probably on all socials. I saw it on Instagram, and the public was just like, "Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's it." And I was like, there could be a public outrage that would actually be really helpful.
Well, the public just don't know. Like, they're not making the connection, I don't think.
That's true.
They're probably just not understanding. If every footballer on a football team was injured,
exactly,
you would be like, "Oh, what are you doing in training? You don't know what you're doing right."
But why can't you field a team of footballers? Because they're all injured. It's like, well, that doesn't sound very good.
No. Yeah, you'd blame it. Absolutely. Or like if everyone in your company, like a corporate company, called in sick, we all need sabbaticals because we're all dying, we've been worked to the bone here, like we're exhausted, that's on the company.
Yes, and I mean, interestingly enough, I was invited to talk to the director a couple of weeks later, so the one of this company where performances had to be cancelled. And for me, it was an impossible task. It was really an impossible task because everything I got to hear during the whole hour that I was sat in his office, it's all the dancers. They are too lazy. They are not doing the conditioning work they need to do. It's okay. Actually, you don't need me. You need someone to help you with communication. You don't need me.
Quite.
Yeah. The common denominator is where everyone works, because like this isn't happening at these examples of dance companies that are doing a really great job. So I suppose the longer that's happening as well, like these other companies are proving the concept, this new fancy concept.
Or being healthy, realizing that actually health is worth something.
Yeah. Cool. Part of me wants to be like, all right, so if there's any really young dancers listening, like, be the one that turns your nose up to like that pressure because you know you want to dance for a really long time, and you know what you need to do that.
It's the longevity, and it's not even if you don't want to follow a career in dance. If you want to, like I did, get to a decent high amateur level, or frankly just enjoy it, or enjoy anything, you can only do that, reach your full potential, if you are healthy. I know it kind of sounds obvious, but if you just look at it in that context, you can never reach your full potential for anything. And especially dancing, where you are, of course, using your body a lot, if you're not fundamentally healthy. So, knowing your own body and knowing what you personally need. So, just because, someone next door or someone sitting next to you isn't eating carbohydrates, that doesn't mean that that's, now universally true for everybody. It's got to follow that one person doing that, So I think it is challenging. If, like you say, if you're surrounded by people doing that, you think you believe that is normal, or that is the right thing to do for you. But I think it's also, like you say, just being strong without being too rude or obnoxious about it. But yeah, being certain and informing yourself and educating yourself and standing up for what you need, your body needs. I think that's really, really important, because it's your body after all at the end of the day, not anyone else's. So you kind of have to take responsibility for it yourself.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think once they've gotten to this point where they know, knowledge is empowering, we all know this. So the more you know, the more often you will be in class and be like, just brush off a comment that your teacher made, because you'll be like, oh goodness, like she's talking again about not eating dinner or not eating carbs for dinner or whatever. And then you would just go home and say, okay, come on. I know human biology. I know why I need to eat this. This is the one thing. But the other thing is also, particularly for professional dancers, this gives you so much peace of mind. So you can actually really focus on your artistry, which is, that is what you want to do and what the audiences want to see, isn't it?
Yeah. Not obsessing about the food or whatever. It's actually, what about the dancing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And something that I like to talk about on the show a lot for everyone in every sport, or even just walking out there in the world, I like to talk about this a lot, where so many of us want to be like special, and we want to be, someone who did something amazing, like started a movement, or, was the first person to do this. And we're all so inspired by those people. We're all inspired by these types of people, but we don't connect that we're obsessively following other people that have done things before them, instead of being the first people to make change, if this makes sense. So I see, like, I'm sure one day that there are like, I don't know what we're calling them. Are we calling them plus size dancers? Are we calling them, like, what are we even saying? But I'm sure that they have a name or something. And people are really inspired by them. Like there's the Pretty Big movement is like a really fun hip hop dance group, and they're all bigger girls who are like just pushing back against this stereotype of what they need to be. Yeah. And they're at the beginning, them doing that would have been really scary, but it blew up and everyone is inspired by them. And for me, like, even just starting this podcast was really scary, but then lots of people started listening and were like, oh, how do you get the courage to speak about this? And it's like, someone has to do it first. If you want to be one of those people who creates change and who is at the forefront of a movement, you can't wait for someone else to do it.
No, exactly. That's a very good point. You have to be, like Steph says, empowered, and like you say, be inspired. And you cannot be inspired if you're not healthy, because you can't think straight. So it all goes back to the health, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And being passionate about something that's important for you, and not just doing something because, someone else is doing something like that and whatever, just finding your own path. Sure, I think one can take inspiration, like you say, from people doing things, but that doesn't mean that you have to be a clone of that and exactly copy that, to have your own twist on it.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I had this recently, I had this very interesting experience with my Instagram account where all of a sudden I realized my tweets, when I copied my tweets into Instagram, they would get a lot more likes than a nice, pretty dance photo. And I was like,
oh yeah,
okay, if that's the way to go, if that's what you need to hear at the moment, happy to provide, really, seriously. But I mean, yeah, you have to be open, and we never stop learning.
Exactly.
Yeah, so good. Okay. Well, where can women, because there are definitely people in the dance community that are listening that are going to want to find where they can get even more connection with people who are speaking and understand exactly what they're going through. Where can people go and learn more about you guys and maybe even get support from you guys?
Yes, both of us are in clinical practice. So for me, I've got a website, nickykfitness.com, and there's lots of information there if you want to see me from a clinical point of view, and I put blogs and stuff that's going on. And I also wrote a website for BASIM, British Association of Sports and Exercise Medicine, called health4performance.co.uk, number 4. And that's got lots of information about REDs and things like this. So those are 2 places to have a look. And of course, please look at our study. It's open access. I paid an arm and a leg, literally.
Oh yeah, how do I find it?
See it? So please
shoot me the link. I'll put it in the show
I'll shoot you the link. So please, and that's why I was determined that it would be open access, even though it did cost an arm and a leg, because otherwise the only people that would see it would be crusty old doctors who think they know, already. So this is for, I mean, it is scientifically written, it's true, but listen, I'm sure that dancers are intelligent enough to get the facts and see the graphs and everything. So anyway, that's me. But Steph, I think you need to mention all your places where people can find you.
But Nicky, you're on Instagram as well. So you should mention that.
I have to admit, I'm not so great on the social stuff, but listen, I am also on Instagram and Twitter and even Facebook, so you can find me there. Also, Nicky Keay Fitness. It might just be the capital K rather than the Keay, easier to spell. Anyway, something along those lines. But Steph, I think people should definitely follow Oz Dancers, don't you think?
Yes. So we've got a website, of course, so that's www.ozdancersoverseas.com. And you find, also a blog, you find webinar series. So we've got a webinar series on REDs for male and female dancers. I've got one for students moving overseas as well. And you find a nutrition for dancers section there, which is a subscription section. Then I'm mostly on Instagram, to be honest. This is at Oz Dancers Overseas. Facebook is the same. Twitter is Oz Dancers O. And I guess that's about it. Yeah.
So you can get hold of us. Yeah.
Y'all are around.
Yeah, right. And I think for both of us, Nicky, if you feel like, I think I could do with some treatment or at least some sort of assessment and see, do I need to be picked up somewhere or can I go from there? So just shoot us an email. That is totally fine. And then we'll let you know the details.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool, guys. So there you go. Another option for people to work with. And I actually get a lot of people from the UK ask me, do I know practitioners in the UK? So I've been starting to collect a couple under my belt. And I think that it's really helpful. Girls just want to know where to go to work with and they're afraid, right? To find.
Sure. I mean, I was seeing people face to face in my studio at home, but I'm doing everything by Zoom. But anyway, certainly I run a clinic and I also do some joint clinics in the UK with Renee McGregor, the clinical dietitian.
So cool.
So depending on what the person needs and wants, and I can also arrange some blood tests. I'm a CMO, Chief Medical Officer of Fourth Edge, so we can do finger prick blood tests to find out what hormones are doing. So if you're in the UK, I'm very happy. Although I do Zoom with people all over the world, but specifically if you're in the UK and you want blood tests, then come to me. But of course, if you're more in Europe, then get in touch with Steph, because Steph can also provide very, very similar. So it really depends where you live. I think. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, ladies, so much. All of the links to those places, I furiously wrote them all down. They're going to be in the show notes. I can't thank you enough for coming on and just sort of enlightening us all. I think that was really, really interesting. I'm so excited about the study that you guys did. That really pumps me up that there's a few studies now going on about I just feel like the bubble's going to pop and like,
yeah,
some huge person's going to talk about it, and we're ready. We're ready for them.
We paved the way. We're the ground.
Exactly. So cool. Well, thank you so much, ladies. I hope you have a really great evening.
Evening.
Cool. Yeah. I'm going to go to my job now.
I'll send you the paper right now, Danny.
Well, thank you so much.
Let me just do that while I'm thinking.
Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women.
Excited for a road trip? Start it off right with auto coverage from American Family Insurance. J.D. Power ranked us #1 in customer satisfaction with the auto insurance shopping experience among mid-size insurers. Get a quote at amfam.com.
American Family Insurance.
For J.D. Power 2021 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI and its operating companies, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.